So thank you for joining us today. We have the pleasure of having Dale Shannon from the Mandt system joining us, which is just such a pleasure. We use the Mandt system so much and we talk about it in so many portions of our coursework and our live trainings and our virtual trainings. And we're really happy to have someone here representing. Dale's worked for the Mandt system for 5 years. He is the Director of Instructional Design and Governance. He's been responsible for Mandt content other than the physical skills for 2 years. He's the Director of Instructional Design. Prior to working for Mandt, Dale was the training coordinator for the County Community Mental Health Agency in West Michigan for more than 18 years. He holds a PhD in Organizational Communication from the University of Minnesota, and he also has a master's in Interpersonal Communication and a Bachelor of Science in Education with a major in Speech Education, both from the University of North Dakota. Dale is places that are cold. His resume includes positions in several universities and colleges. He's been an HR manager for a large nursing home. He's been a prep cook, a waiter, and this is my favorite. He's been a food sample person. What is a food sample person?
That kind of dropped out with COVID, but have you ever been in the grocery store and it's usually the little old lady that says, "Would you like to try some of
That
this?"
gives you the little samples. I was
Yes.
hoping it was going to be like, I get to sample all the foods that they make. I would have been a pro.
Yeah, no, I was the person that stood in the grocery store and offered everybody the sample of the latest and greatest, or the odd jobs that we take.
I never knew that that's what it was called, the food sample person. That's interesting. I would never have known that. Dale's coached and volunteered with Special Olympics in Michigan for 25 years. He's also chaired a statewide curriculum development group for those working in mental and behavioral health in Michigan, something we need everywhere. Dale, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Can you
Thank you.
explain what the Mandt system is and what you do for them?
Sure. The Mandt system as a company, our goal is to help people to reduce incidents or to be able to work with people in a positive way so that something doesn't even become an incident. I would like to think of it as increasing workplace satisfaction, decreasing workplace conflict, and pretty much improving people's lives. We do this through focusing primarily on educating people to prevent and to simply prevent a situation.
Yeah.
So when you look at something, all of life is a choice, and it's helping people see I can either choose to do something that's going to make the situation better, or we frequently don't choose to make it worse, we react. Someone says or does something that pushes a button, and we jump right on it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Usually followed a few seconds thereafter by, "Oops, I may have overreacted."
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a Mandt trainer, I believe, for, I think it's been about 17 years at this point. In my experience with Mandt was actually, I had been trained in other systems. I was a trainer actually in other systems, and I actually got my nose broken one day. And I said, I've got to find a system that really helps me identify things before we get to that point. And that's how I stumbled across the Mandt system and became a trainer in them and trained many school districts and held licenses for both those and my own organization. But it's been a huge change in that. So as far as like physical incidences and making sure that people feel safe and are kept safe. And that's really the goal, especially now, for people to feel mentally safe and emotionally safe is in today's day and age just huge. How did you decide that you wanted to be a part of the Mandt organization?
I had been a training coordinator for community mental health, and we had been training other systems. So I was teaching people to do things that I really didn't enjoy doing and I really didn't believe in, but it was the requirement. And then one day I was told that we were switching. Unfortunately, I wasn't part of the decision, but I think it was a really good decision. The agency switched to Mandt.
That's
So
great.
I went and was certified as a Mandt trainer and loved it. It was making a world of difference for me in my workplace. And then my workplace decided that with budget cuts and everything else, the training department was expendable. They
Mhm.
didn't eliminate the training department. They just eliminated all of the staff in the training department.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
So, luckily, at about that same time, I had already sent in an application to the Mandt system. One of their long-term national faculty was stepping back for other things, and so I was able to step in with the national company, initially as just a national faculty person, and then we did some reorganization, and given my background with curriculum development and all of that, I took over the newly created role of Director of Instructional Design.
That's great. And the faculty is outstanding. I have to say, I've had the opportunity of meeting a lot of the different instructors to the organization over the years through research and everything else. And it's been just a wonderful experience. I have nothing but good things to say about the group of instructors for the Mandt system. What drives you personally each day, Dale?
I have always wanted to do work that made a difference. At one point in time, I was a college professor, and my university was really trying to up their profile. It was becoming publish or perish, and I could have easily written a number of journal articles and gotten them out to publish. But at some point, you start to question, am I doing that just to publish something, or does it make a difference? And when I saw it would have been doing it just to do it, I walked away from that. And that's when I went into training and development.
Yeah, and that's huge. I can see it every day. I actually had an administrator from a school district that was training, I believe this week or last week, who grabbed me this morning and was like, it was life-changing. Everything makes sense now, and everything. So it was just such a nice moment for her to be able to really connect the dots of how we can be more proactive about creating communities of safety and everything else.
What a lot of people miss when we talk about communities of safety, or you mentioned people feeling safe, is that needs to extend not only to our students or the people we're supporting, that also needs to apply to us, the faculty, the staff, the employees
100%.
need to feel safe in our workplaces, because if we don't feel safe, we're not going to provide the best services we can.
Absolutely. And that's so true this year with the fatigue and everything else that's going on with people, 100%. So that leads in really well to how do you practice self-care, Dale? I know you have dogs and everything else. So.
Have dogs. I love dogs and outdoors. So for me, it's things like going for a walk. When I'm out on the road, I don't have the dogs. So that's when I'm always looking for either a park or a trail, someplace where I can go out. And I love to take pictures. So if you're to look at my phone right now, the number of pictures of trails, trees, waterfalls, plants, there's a lot of those in there.
How it renews. That's great. Do you have any practices of self-care on a daily basis? Do you go out and take a walk on a daily basis or do something like that?
I wish I could say I would or did. And I think my doctor also wishes I did a little bit more of that. I'm currently battling some tendonitis in an ankle, which makes that whole going for a pleasure walk a little more edgy.
Yeah.
I was recently out in Missoula, Montana, which is beautiful up in the mountains, and I went just for a nice little hike. Unfortunately, it was up and up and up, and going up wasn't all bad. It was the coming back down. I got back down to the parking lot to my car. So
that angle. Do you have secret talents, Dale? I bet you do. What do you have for secret talent?
I admit it in several of the events that I post, but I'm also a licensed square dance caller.
Are you really? That's fascinating. Like the MC person that says, this is what you're going to do next.
I get to do all that.
There's so many things that can come out of that. Like, it's funny. I was doing this workshop on creating empathy, and somebody had said something about, well, empathy and how do you do that? And I'm like, well, synchronized movement actually creates empathy. It creates empathy in the brain. You go, square dancers.
Also really helpful when you're training, when you need to run a drill and you're telling people, place your right hand here, step across here, do that. It just becomes square dance calling for me.
Hand on the hip. Put the hand to the shoulder. Slide down the arm. Make a C.
It's not music when we train Mandt. So
No.
maybe I should incorporate some of that, get some background music to
That
get a
would be,
rhythm.
yeah, that would be fabulous. Whenever people take a training from me, they're like, Bethany, we feel like we're doing aerobics. Step forward, the right. I'm very rhythmic by nature, so it just ends up happening.
And there are several points that people refer to the Mandt dance.
Yeah,
So for me, it's the Mandt square dance.
yeah, you could totally make like a move out of that, out of a different stance. Awesome. What do you feel you might have failed at in your life that you have figured out a way to kind of overcome that, or it shaped you in a different way?
I saw that question. That one always stumps me because I don't want to think that I have failed. I may not have always been a success. I did end up walking away from being a college professor.
Mm-hmm.
For the sake of not publishing enough.
Mhm.
And I wasn't publishing because what I had, I didn't think it didn't make a difference. Could have gotten it published just to save my position, but I didn't see the point. So that's, I think, what really helped me start to focus in on, I want to make sure that I do things that actually help people and that affect people. Everything I've done since then, whether it's the HR manager or trainer or even food sample, that one might be a bit of a stretch, but it's always attempting to do things that allow people to help themselves or to improve themselves or to make their day better or someone else's day or life better.
Commitment to serve. Yeah. It's a huge, huge part of, I think, being in this world and being in the fields that we're in. So it's directly relates to that. What do you feel is your biggest work challenge?
Finding enough time to get everything done. That's probably not unique, but in the Mandt system organization, I spend part of my time out on the road doing training events, and I also have all of the other responsibilities. So my choices are either be on my feet all day at an event and then sit up all night in a hotel room and do all my work on the computer. And then when I get back home, it's once again, pick up the computer, turn it on and log it on. Or if I want to have a life outside of work, I sometimes do have to say, I'll get to that next week or later or just not now.
Yeah, there's never any lack of work, unfortunately. And
Always been learning to say no.
And that's a huge work challenge in and of itself, is being able to say no. So I feel like we learn that with age too. Like I'm getting better at it each year, but I still struggle.
That means I should be pretty darn good. Is that what you're saying?
You do a lot of your work actually from home. So how do you balance that between the two? Because that's really tough. When your work happens in your house, it's really hard to turn it off.
I've always tried to separate it by having a separate room, the office. And when I'm in there, that's office, that's work. And then when I step out, that's home, that's life.
That's good. That's nice that there can be a delineation.
Yeah, there are a lot of us on the Mandt faculty that do similar things, that we have a dedicated spot. It's not like we're going to work at the kitchen table. We have a spot in the house that's the work spot.
It helps a lot. I mean, it's even better if it's outside of the home, but that's not realistic anymore. And many of us, have worked from our homes for years. My office has been in my house for 20 years. You travel a ton. Is there some place that you really want to go to that you haven't had the opportunity to go to yet?
That was a big yes up until last fall. I had to go work in Australia. I've tried to sell it to a lot of people. You get this dire, serious look on your face, and you talk about the drastic, terrible things that you have to do for work.
Yeah.
No one buys it.
Were you able to take extra time and get to explore and all that?
I did have some extra time and did get to do some exploration. Yes, right. That was great. We also have a subsidiary in the United Kingdom. I've never been over there. Would love to get there sometime.
Yeah, that would be fun too. So I'm sure you will at some point. If there's a connection, I'm sure that there will.
Just redid their curriculums.
What are you most proud of in regards to your work?
I hate to admit it, but I think this recent edition that just came out last year in 22, I think it's been a big improvement for the company. It keeps all of our basic philosophy and all of that is still there. I just think it flows much better and it is resourced and cited. And we're continuing. I'm already working on the next edition. So
Never ends.
never ends.
There's always new material to add, unfortunately.
Material to add or another way to rephrase it or reorganize it or shift it a little bit.
I mean, I found that the curriculum that you guys released a couple of years ago that I trained on, it was far exceeding where it had been even. So I'm looking forward to being able to do a face-to-face.
Hopefully you'll say that same thing again when you come through your next research.
I'm sure I will. How do you want to be remembered, Dale?
Someone who cared, someone who hopefully made a difference for someone. Some people need to have some tangible thing, a building or a plaque, or I don't need that, but I want someone somewhere to say, I remember Dale and he helped.
Back to service, of course.
If one person can do that afterwards, I will be content.
Anything about you that you think people would be surprised to know?
I already gave away the big one, the square dance. I've also bowled more than 50 years of my life. That doesn't fit into anything else, but another one of those little fun habits you pick up along the way.
It is self-care. So where can people find you? We know that they can find you at the mantsystem.com, and we are going to post that below.
You can have my email, which is a real difficult one because in our company, it's always the person's first name at mantsystem.com. So if anyone sees this and has a particular question, Dale@mantsystem.com. I'd love to help her answer questions. Show up any of my events coming up and I'll say hi.
Yeah. And where can they find those events? On the website also, Dale?
On the website, you'll be able to find where all of our upcoming events are. I'm trying to think next week, I'm not at an event, but next week I still have to travel. I get to go speak to a state Department of Health for an Eastern state to make sure Mandt is on their approved curriculum list.
Those are very important things. Dale, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, our audience, for joining us as well. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast. Please give us some feedback if you would like and reach out to us if you would like to.